Uh, Today we have a very interesting speaker whom we are interviewing today, and it's Sanjay Vakaria, who's a co-founder and CEO of Spiker Lifestyles Private Limited. I remember when I was going to university, Spiker was one of the most aspirational Indian brands to buy from, and it continues to be a rage in India. So Sanjay, welcome on this conversation. It's really good to have you on board to have this conversation with you. So what inspired you, first of all, to set up an Indian brand in the particularly, would you say yourself, would you be a denim focused brand, or now you consider yourself as a more fashion lifestyle brand?
So I think we would still be pivoted around denims, and we would like to be like that for as much foreseeable future that we can, see. And it's always been like that. So, the day we started, it started off as a pure play denim provider. And from there, we moved on as the markets grew and evolved to kind of adding more categories to the business, and eventually kind of putting across a whole range of casual merchandise which is pivoted around denims. So I can actually say that everything which is there at Spiker, which is not denim, is complementing denims in its own ways. So from that perspective, we've been very honest to the category.
And how did this journey start? How did you come about setting up a denim fashion brand in India? What inspired you to set up? What gave you the insight to that there's a market for a brand like yours? That when there are global giants already coming in and vying for space as well on the shelves.
So it's like an oft-repeated thing for me and for a few of the listeners as well. But yeah, so it kind of rewinds back to times when we were in college, and what used to be the staple offering as far as denims are concerned back then. There were not too many brands which were international. aside Wrangler, which was there from a while, and there were a lot of imports, smuggled goods, which were coming from Bangkok, Hong Kong, China, and other places. And retail was not what it is today. So from that perspective, there used to be multi-brand retail, and they were split between small boutiques and larger family stores. We actually started looking at denims uh, first and foremost from a perspective of how do you wash a pair of jeans. So uh, it was not as much me who actually owes whom Spiker owes its existence. It's one Mr. Prasad Pabrekar, who was the founder for the brand, and he was actually a person in the business of processing, and that's when kind of he was approached by a few denim manufacturers back then, to kind of help them process denims as a garment. And that was the first time he kind of tinkered with a pair of jeans. And being what he is, he's kind of a person who loves to fiddle around. He himself is an electrical engineer, so he's a very keen, he's quite curious about everything, and that led him to kind of create an expertise on washing and processing denims. And actually, that's how the business actually kind of initiated at our level. So he started as a processing house, and which then did some backward integration and kind of wanted to do garmenting as well. And again, a little bit moved backwards and say, why not, instead of me just being an FOB supplier, why shouldn't I start my own brand? And that's
Right.
where me and Prasad actually came together. Uh, exactly at that point of time, I had my own denim brand called Rags, and he used to be my job worker. And then we both got together and thought that we should start this brand, Spiker. I couldn't join him in the initial days for some reasons. But he started the brand, and in a couple of months, I joined him as well. And since then, we've been together. It's something which happened in 1992, and it's been a good journey post that till now. So basically, this is important to know because we Spiker pride ourselves on the quality that we deliver, and it only comes out of the fact that technically we are much more stronger than many Indian players. So
Right.
because the genesis of the brand came from a factory which was actually a process house, then leading up to a factory and eventually a brand. Uh, our strength on the product is quite high, and also the passion stems from there. So right from what we do, what we bring in as inputs in the garment, whether it's the design, whether it is the quality, whether it's the chemicals, whether it's a fabric, whether it's the fit, all of them are primary to us, and hence non-compromisable. So somewhere along the way, the only thing we never let go. I mean, we've seen many downturns and upticks also. But even during the worst of our phases, I don't think that we've let the control, or rather the promise and the delivery on the product drop. That's been very paramount for us. And so yeah, going back to the early days where there used to be only mom and pop stores, maybe of some different sizes. But yeah, us being what we were, we found that there is a set of people who really look at international or imported brands to satisfy their needs of denims. And these are the people who are very, they are people who are discerning as an audience, because they are very young and they kind of want something specific out of their denims, which probably the brands at that point of time in India were not providing. And this industry at that back then were ruled by a lot of people who are very smart and shrewd business people, but somewhere I feel that they never aligned or they never identified themselves as a denim lover. So they looked at denim as probably a commodity which can sell well and earn you a lot of money. But they never saw denim as a category which can, become so symbolic and so personal to an individual. And they never approached the business in that manner. So we as people at that point of time were consumers of denims, and we also saw that there was a market for products that we kind of liked but were not provided by India as a manufacturing place. And so we thought that let's get into denim, let's use denim as a canvas to kind of put across our thoughts as to what kind of fashioning we want to do on denim, what is it that we'd like to see in a pair of jeans ourselves. And
Right.
that kind of was the very limited objective for us, that let's provide something for the younger audiences, something they will desire. And these also were kind of products which were met, the needs were met by international brands or fake stuff. Now that also led to another business opportunity for us, because when you smuggle in goods or you buy from people who have gotten goods from the gray channel, it's very difficult to go back if there is a defect in the product, or if you want just the missing sizes. So the retailers were very happy to kind of welcome us, because we brought them the products that they kind of were buying from, say, Hong Kong, Bangkok, but now they had all the privileges of what a retailer finds himself earning for or yearning for. So we provided them with, I mean, it's a good proper business that we were proposing over there, where we stood behind the quality. So they were sure about what they are selling to the customer. We stood behind them with respect to missing sizes, which is again the biggest bane of our kind of business, where if you don't have the missing sizes, then the whole the propensity of the product, what is left is to sell, becomes much more lesser. So I think these are very basic and very simple things that every business needs, which we brought on table, but they were not there for sure. And so to identify that and also to stick around with the same objective was more challenging for us in the coming years. Um, so yeah, we were well received by the markets because of these couple of things, and that also allowed us to kind of create a space for ourselves, because eventually we saw that this category is a category which is led by international brands, and for India it's an alien product. We can't call it ours. So obviously at any given time you're going to be you're going to kind of be seemingly smaller compared to a Levi's and a Lee and a Wrangler, because they have been there for such a long time. They've created the category. Levi's is a world leader in this, and suddenly you find yourself kind of competing with them. So from that perspective, we were very happy to to lead ourselves through with fashion as a primary, selling proposition, because that was something which Levi's was never. They were always basic. They were very classic, and so it allowed us to kind of be with Levi's as a complementing brand rather than a competing brand, and that gave us entry into practically the whole country, and all of them welcomed the fact that here is a brand which is giving us interesting stuff, and there's something new every time from Spiker, and so the consumers also relish it, and it doesn't get boring. So that's basically how we started off. We were very lucky that we picked on this category. I would not say luck as much, but we were very honest and sincere to stick to the category, because there have been a lot of 29 years is a long time, and I'm sure you'll realize that in this 29 years there would have been much of greed which would have come to our minds of moving into basics and kind of do what say a Levi's does. But we always realize that our forte is fashion, and we are known for fashion. And so if we let that drop, then then there is not much reason for somebody to pick on Spiker. So that's how we started off. The first 10 years was all about doing that. Along with that, we created a lot of buzz around the brand. We never looked at mainline media as a primary channel for us. We actually entered into every college the country had. Early days, and when I said early days, it's the first 15 years of our lives. There was not a single college who would probably not have, done something with Spiker across the country.
So you were sponsoring. I remember all the rock
Yeah.
concerts and all the college festivals at one time. I remember all those, which was always Spiker, always one of the forefront to do that, right?
Yeah, so it was very so again the focus was very very sharp on a very young audience, and back then colleges were kind of the hotbed for everything new, so we felt that that's the audience that we are looking at and talking to, and we really didn't see the reason to go beyond that audience and that environment. So we kind of owned that environment for nearly 15 years, and everything that could possibly happen on college activation was done at Spiker. So it also earned us very strong ownership of that youth category, and the trade recognized us for that. And today also, if I would say that we probably at the forefront of talking to that audience, and having kept that audience as a focal point for our brand. So yeah, I mean these were things that kind of helped us stay where we are and kind of fortify ourselves as far as our position is concerned. I'm very glad to say that in the last 10 years, having created a good brand out of very great products, we've been allowed by consumers to move into core, basic, classic denims as well, and they are very very well appreciated, because again, what we differentiate in the classic category also is that we keep the form the same, but we bring in a lot of variety with respect to fabrics. So for a consumer who wants to wear a basic 5-pocket jeans, he'll find tons of options at Spiker compared to my competitors. In the last 10 years, as a brand, we've grown quite a lot in stature. Retailing has helped us a lot. 300, 350 doors with Spiker as a masthead has allowed Spiker to become a primary and a premium brand and a premier brand from India. Today, I can very proudly say that I don't think there's anybody bigger than us in denims as far as India is concerned from an Indian brand perspective. And if I look at the top 5 brands in India in denims, we probably would be the only Indian denim brand over there. So I think we compete headlong with Pepe to fight for the second position. I don't want to fight for the first position only because I really respect Levi's, and I feel that that position is his and he should have it. But second is going to be very bitterly fought, and I'm not going to let go of that position.
So Sanjay, how many touch points for your customers to where you retail out of? Whether your own stores, multi-brand stores. How many touch points now?
So Pankaj, I think if I look at as a totality, I would be available from nearly 2,000 touch points in India.
And Sanjay, you kept saying that you identified an opportunity in India in the denim business, where you said the international brands, say the likes of Levi's, always focused on the basics of denim, which is the standard 5-pocket jeans, maybe different cuts and the others, but they've always focused on that. You identified that the Indian market is always very aspirational. That loves a little bit of sprucing up their fabric, their clothes. They like the variety, and you looked at the opportunity. But we also seen that I've been in the retail industry for the last 23 years. I've been seeing and working with brands like yourselves and the other likewise players as well. Apart from one or two, most of the international fashion brands have kind of fallen out. And what's the reason for that? Is it because you're able to, as an Indian brand, able to read, are more closer to the customer and able to read the customer better? And most of the international brands are not able to do it? Because you see a lot of the brands, international, and some of the names you took, have not had a big success story, although having spent 15, 20 years in India. And some of them have wrapped up also, right? Whether they came from a licensing agreement or they came from a franchise agreement or whatever different arrangements they may have come in. So what's been the reason for them? They're not being successful.
So I think you have given the answer within your question itself, Pankaj. Rightly so that Spiker, we are very close to the ground, okay? And if I just kind of zoom out a little bit and look at the larger industry, not just denims, and if you start, defining success by how profitable the business is, okay, and not how large the business is, right? You will find that a lot of brands which are entrepreneur-led are in profits. Okay, the size of the brand may be small, but they are still in profits. So, there are 2 or 3 darlings that the industry had. There was never a better entrepreneur than Chetan Shah as far as denim is concerned, Pepe.
Right.
Or for that matter, Killer, where Keval Bhai and his family runs a very tight ship, and they probably are the darlings also of the stock markets, right? So they are extremely profitable. Or you look at Mufti as a brand, where Kamal is doing very well, right? And he's quite profitable. Or you move away from denims and casual wear and go to say Blackberry or a Zodiac, and they are in profits. Okay, I feel that brands which are run with a soul would always be ahead of the others. Primarily because it's not very binary as far as fashion is concerned. You have to identify your consumers. You have to have that passion that you bring on table. You need to be sustaining it with the passion as well. Professionals do run the businesses well, and there are quite a few great and interesting professionals in the industry. But I would still I still feel that in India, at least, this industry run by founders and by promoters have done much better from a profitability perspective than the others. So
and is it the international brands or the professionals go overspend on marketing and brand building too much, then forgetting about a product?
It could be a mix of many things. One is basically they have not really dipped themselves enough in the brand. So unless until you really don't know what you're doing, what the brand stands for, which are your customers, and these are something that you need to feel, and with time and with efforts and with your involvement that comes. And so I feel that many cases, and especially in the business of denims, you leave aside Levi's, but I find that there was a time which was a lull for Pepe also after Chetan went away, and they kind of lost their plot for a while. They're trying their best to come back again. I feel that people have not kept pace with what the markets want and what the industry wants, and that's where knowing India as a market becomes very critical. And that's probably the reason why Spiker has done extremely well. If I just give you a few of my inside information, I have my team is basically pretty strong, and I have not found too much of change happening in my team. So Uh, I have at least 20 people who have been with me since in the brand since last 25 years. You know, that's one. I have not had too much of moving out of my distributors and my retailers. I think uh, a lot has to do with the comfort that the whole trade has with each other, and at the same time whether the brand is making enough efforts to stay relevant to the audiences that it kind of aspires for. So I think for Spiker it has been most critical that we stay 18 till we die, and that's exactly how we live our life as well. you know we are absolutely in touch with the audiences, and the audiences in India, and that again is a huge cauldron of people because we have people across length and breadth of countries who are very different. So from all this perspective, it's very critical that the sense of continuity is there in the brand. Okay, and at the same time, the people who are running the brand should be able to understand where audiences are moving towards, and this is something which is not theoretical in nature, but actually where you go and feel it, you move out in the markets, you really see where things are happening. So if you see, while we all say that the multi-brand trade is kind of dropping and it's shrinking, Spiker has always found that every year there has been a 12 to 15% growth in my distribution channel. So somewhere I think that the amount of involvement that you bring on table is sometimes it is in direct proportion to the success that you eventually get.
And tell me, Sanjay bhai, India is being such a large country, and we always looked at fashion coming out of the big cities like Delhi and Bombay leading the fashion parade, and then Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, and Calcutta. Um, we've started seeing now, I mean, we've seen that over the years, the tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4 markets tend to be bigger than what people had estimated. So what is your take in saying, how are you looking at the inroads into these markets? Do you think there is a much bigger opportunity which has still not been exploited? Do you see that the girl who's going to college, even in a tier 3 town, switching over from the salwar kameez to jeans, is it already happened? Is it in under transition right now? What is it? Is the opportunity big in those markets?
So for men, it has already happened.
Hmm.
For women, it is happening in a big manner. Okay, and we have been very far-sighted on this. And I think my first retail store that I put up was in 2003, and my tier 2, tier 3 expansion began in 2008 and 9.
Right.
So I feel that I've been at the forefront of identifying and moving into the smaller towns much earlier than we've been talking about in the last 4 5 years, but I've
Hmm.
actually been there for the last 10 years now already. So I think India is all about being in those markets. There is a very huge population out there who's now equipped to figure out what the world is doing with so much of exposure to media, and the penetration of internet and the penetration of mobiles and smartphones. It has just brought everything so close to each other, and I feel that these are not just words, and we see that happening everywhere. The level of aspirations that a small town person has is immense, and it's about time that kind of explodes and brings in huge amount of business that we all attribute to India as a middle class society. I think it's just out there waiting to explode. It's not happened as yet. I'm saying that the way everything is percolating down to the smaller towns, it's just about to happen, and we would be amongst the biggest beneficiaries. All the people who are currently servicing India, and especially servicing the smaller towns, would be really fortunate if we stick on to it, because there's something great going to happen, and it's just going to spiral into a much serious and a big affair.
And Sanjay bhai, from since you talked about and saying there is the market is going to explode there and there's a huge opportunity, and you went in as early as 2008, 9. Is it true that that market is it fashion conscious market, or is it a price sensitive market, or is it a blend of both? Uh, because a lot of retailers struggle with that. They think that the tier 2, particularly more tier 3 and tier 4, is not a very fashion conscious market. It's driven primarily by price. Is that true?
So if you put it, if you ask for as a generic statement, yeah, what you are saying is true. But I'm saying that uh, every town is seeing a lot of development today, right? And it's bringing in a lot of riches and a lot of uh, you know great lifestyle to them. Now, for a small town guy, clothing becomes very critical to kind of put across as a status or as his measure of status, and because exposure is very large and very even across the country, I think fashion is not just restricted to the big towns anymore. But there is a portion of people, there is a segment of people in every town who are aspirational for high fashion. They're aspirational for good things in life, and that number is going to keep on growing. So I feel that to assume that it's mass across, and so it's only mass which will work, is not the correctest of all statement. Yes, mass will work, and it has to work because of the sheer size of our population, and there is no two ways about it. But yeah, there are set of people who are also looking for interesting products, smart products, more expensive, more premium stuff. So I think though the segment is small, I am very sure that it's going to grow because nobody wants to be at any particular level for a long time. He would like to aspire for something better, bigger. A guy on a scooter would move to a better bike to a car to a better. I think it's more evolution for all of us, and you and me also been through it ourselves. So it's a matter of time that we see that happening everywhere in the country.
So, if I would say, what would be your journey for so you talk, from a 5-year perspective? Where do you see a brand like Spiker? Have you charted a roadmap for next 5 years?
So today, Spiker is straddling every possible channel of sales in the country. Where we started with the small retailer, the mom and pop store. It still happens to be one of my most important driver because nobody can connect me with my audiences better than the mom and pop store. They are much ahead of us. We're talking about 720 plus districts in the country.
Right.
And each district capital happens to be one potential store for yourself or one market for yourself. So currently I'm servicing 440 plus towns in the country. I think there is a lot of headway there also and headroom there as well.
So you're saying clearly there is a 300 plus store expansion potential there for you.
Straight away. I mean, my own stores are in 150 cities as standalone stores. So from a multi-brand outlet perspective, also there is enough to be done. From my own store perspective, there's a lot more to be done.
Right.
And from a large format retail perspective, all the more markets are bigger and better to, and we have a very strong relationship with the small town guy. So for anybody to succeed in the small town, the ideal bid would be Spiker. So I'm very happy, and I think we are extremely well positioned. I see, immense opportunity for Spiker, and the way India is kind of, coming of age. I think the next 25, 30, 40 years, you never know. I mean, there's so much to happen.
So Sanjay bhai, since our audience is going to be very varied from the industry, it could be brand owners, expansion team members, international brand partners. Some key learnings in this 25 plus years journey, what you've learned in the last 25 years, which you want to give us takeaway to the people, that what's your and where they should be building on. Your typical, you might have made some mistakes as well, right? Some learnings from those mistakes or some opportunities where you would like to share with the audience.
So I think one single mistake that Spiker has made, and that has kind of allowed us to be not where we could have been, is managing cash flows. So I think this business is extremely demanding on cash. Yeah. And so if you are prudent on that aspect, if you have planned out very, very well, and I also feel that there is no bus to be missed in a rush. Right. So I think the market's here. We are all here. What business we are in is something which is the most basic of all businesses. So we should be taking very measured steps and calculated steps inventory is the biggest bane of our industry. Yeah, and so we need to be very conscious on building inventory, because with the way these markets are currently structured, where an end of season sale is just around the corner every time, margins are getting squeezed, and it does not give you enough time to sell at full price. So it's going to be extremely very crucial for us to be conscious on building inventory. So these are the two areas which I think. The second area, I'm not too worried because we've never gone overboard on inventory. There was a time and phase where we felt that we could do more brands, and maybe our plans on cash did not kind of add up, and we actually burnt our fingers and our feet and our head all over that at that point of time. But I would be very conscious about uh, doing things which probably your cash allows you to do. So
And today, would be your biggest cash guzzler in your business? Would be, if I would say, what would be the biggest expense? Would real estate be a biggest expense uh, in terms of for you, or is it the stores? Is it the merchandising? What, or marketing? What's one of the biggest spends for you in your business today?
So I don't think that. I don't think I would consider stores at the biggest expense, because they are very critical for our growth. Okay, I think the biggest expense would be the procurement that we do today, and that is the only place where we need to be very conscious of. And yes, uh, hence, the biggest expense would be probably the discounts that we offer to our consumers. So if I have to look at one single, uh, you know, uh, chunk of monies that I would rather look at, is what we eventually give away as discounts to consumers. So what do we do to ensure that the discounts go lesser? What do we do so that our full price business grows? And hence, how do you manage your inventory well?
Sanjay bhai, what example of telling us how do you do that to minimize discounting?
We all know that the consumers today flock when an end of season sale happens.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the highest footfall time as far as the year is concerned. And the bigger job is to get the customer out of his house. Now he's already moved out and he's already entered your store. If I can offer him something interesting at that point of time, along with whatever I'm discounting, it just creates another opportunity for me to sell more of my full price. So
is it adding more categories to your store or your retail offering?
So that is one, because since the number of customers walking into the stores, say, are as much, what can I give him more? So that is one. And secondly, can I bring in my next season a little earlier so that it can overlap with the EOSS? And so while he's buying something, and we all know that when you go for an end of season sale purchase, you may not always get the right size, the right product in your size. And those are disappointing times which we face. But at that point of time, you find something interesting, but you have to pay full price. Consumers don't, hesitate; they pay. So I think the timing of getting in the next season merchandise into your business has become more crucial. I guess that leads you to kind of have more of business at the full price level, and also takes away that much more pressure from the next end of season sale as far as inventory is concerned.
And Sanjay, we've seen so many success stories, and brands like yourself are a big success story in India. I know India is a big market, but do you think Spiker or brands like yourself can go international and become international icons as well? Or right now the contention is that India is a big market, let's focus on India. Why can't there be a Spiker be an international brand like a Levi's international?
Yeah, so the first answer is that yes, I mean, there's nothing that we do which is not relevant to Europe or US as a market. Okay. In fact, we get inspired by European fashion more so ever. So from that perspective, there's nothing that can stop us from going over there. Secondly, if you really look at it, US, Europe, or Australia, or any of the markets, they are so used to selling brands from across the globe. So as much as we think that we are doing a great thing by going over there and selling Spiker or an Indian brand, they would not probably see us as a very different commodity or a different player. For them, it's a very established practice to find brands from Japan coming and selling there, or from various other parts. It's just that we have always been from a mindset where we are manufacturers, we were never brand owners, we were never brand creators. India has not made too many brands itself, you know.
Yeah.
We've
True.
always been the factories or the makers for the world. But from creating your own IP, I think we have been we have always lagged. So, and in the last few years, we see that now people are looking up and saying that, okay, I can create an IP from India as well. And we are much more confident now versus what we used to be earlier. So I personally feel that there's nothing stopping us from moving out. If all the resources are in place, then you can do simultaneously your international expansion along with India, because India, there is a bus to be missed in that sense. There's so much for things to happen in India that if I have limited resources, whether it's people or money or whatever it is, then I would rather be in India, because the whole world is looking into our country. This is not probably the time to move out of the country. But yes, if everything is right, and there's nothing that can stop India from doing well across any part of the world. And especially because we have been great manufacturers. So that's a challenge which already is not a challenge for us compared to other guys.
Fantastic story, Sanjay bhai. Extremely, in coming into a market where the entire customer segment used to think always about and getting aspiring always to buy an international brand and setting up an Indian brand over this 25 plus years, and putting it in the map, and you're talking about and saying the India story is still, big time left to explore. So there is huge market for, and it's great news for people like us, who help brands like yourself reach out and set up more doors. But Sanjay bhai, apart from business, what excites you? What motivates you every day in the morning to come to work? How do you occupy your own time otherwise when you're not at work?
Yeah, so I love to travel, and I've realized that in the last 10, 15 years, I've kind of, I'm not now in a rush when I travel. I would rather stay in one place, and until I don't absorb and don't feel like a local, I don't feel I've seen the place. So that experience is now very invigorating for me, and I love to be in a place for a long time, not really keep on hop skipping and jumping from your one state to the other, one country to another. Yeah, so travel is something which I'm looking forward to. I love food. I love local food, so that kind of allows me to also experience a country or a set of people much better. Love to read a lot, uh, though now maybe the medium has moved from hardback to probably my Kindle. But yeah, I like to read, I like to travel, I like to meet with my friends. I'm not too much of a sports guy. I like to watch sports, not play as much.
And you follow the international fashion business very closely. It's something which you keep
Yeah, so
monitoring on a regular basis.
there are a couple of tourneys that I do yearly. One visit is always to Amsterdam, because for me that's a mecca of denims. Yeah, and there are a
Is it?
couple of yeah. So I think there is no better place in denims apart from Japan, which is quite premium as far as denims is concerned. But fashion that Spiker loves and feels comfortable with is all out there in Netherlands, and I follow Netherlands pretty well and very closely. And then there are a couple of trade shows which I have to be, and we try our best to be in. I mean, leave aside these last 2 years, but these are a few kind of pilgrimages that we do yearly.
Nice. No, but great pleasure talking to you, Sanjay bhai. I mean, very, very insightful to understand that in India you can create a brand in a space which is been perceptionally dominated. I wouldn't say dominated, but I would say perceptionally dominated by international names. And what I liked about you're being very candid to say, listen, I'm not vying for the first position. It is meant for a global brand. But I know somewhere in your heart you will say, listen, one day I will try and reach that. But I'm saying you're being very modest and saying, listen, I'm let them take that first position, but I will not leave the second position so easily. I will capture that position and be there at that position. And I really like their insights into how you establish the brand, how you're thinking about it, because I think their approach was the ground up approach. And that's what the mistake, which you rightly kind of mentioned as well, where international brands fail in India is not having a ground plus approach. They have a top down approach where they look at it and saying, what's been selling internationally? This is our product. India is as aspirational, and we'll try and sell it the same way. But I think you're building a business from the ground up, and that's I think probably one of the key reasons because Spiker has such a solid story in India. And I really appreciate your time, and thanks for sharing your insights with the audience. And we look to follow up with another session with you. And hopefully Mappiq should do that if the world comes back to in a better place, which should be very soon, should be in person as well. Thank you so much, Sanjay bhai.
Thank you, Pankaj. Thank you, Rima. Thank you, Mappiq, for this opportunity. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mappiq, for putting this together.
Yeah.